At her party, my mom laughed and said, "You're not getting a cent, you've always been a disappointment." I sipped my drink and said, "That's okay. I'm here to celebrate anyway and to let you know I'm moving abroad. Permanently." Suddenly, she wasn't smiling. The champagne tasted expensive. Trust my mother, Patricia Hendricks, to serve only the best at her 60th birthday celebration. The ballroom she'd rented at the Riverside Country Club glittered with crystal chandeliers and tables draped in cream silk. Around 200 guests mingled, laughing at her jokes, congratulating her on a life well lived. I stood near the bar, nursing my second glass of Dom Perignon, watching her hold court like the queen she'd always imagined herself to be. My older sister Vanessa glided past in a powder blue dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She didn't acknowledge me. We hadn't spoken in 3 years, not since I'd refused to lie to her husband about where she'd been on a particular Tuesday night. Some betrayals are unforgivable in families like mine. The truth is one of them. "Sarah." My mother's voice rang across the room. She beckoned me over with one perfectly manicured hand. I set my glass down and walked toward her small circle of admirers. Her friends from the garden club, her tennis partners, and my Aunt Linda all turned to look at me with varying degrees of pity and disdain. "Everyone, this is my youngest daughter," Mom said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Sarah works at some little nonprofit." "What is it you do again, dear?" "Something with homeless people?" "Community outreach and housing advocacy," I replied evenly. I'd learned long ago not to rise to her bait in public. "How noble." Her laugh was light, practiced. Though I keep telling her she wasted that expensive education I provided. She could have been a lawyer like her father wanted. Or married well like Vanessa. Instead, she's living in that terrible apartment in Brooklyn, barely making ends meet. The circle tittered politely. I felt heat creeping up my neck but kept my expression neutral. Mom took a long sip of her martini. "You know, we were just discussing estate planning. Linda was asking about my will. I told her she needn't worry about you, Sarah. You're not getting a cent." She paused for effect, her eyes glittering with something cruel. "You've always been a disappointment." The words hung in the air. I'd heard variations of this my entire life, but somehow, in front of all these people, at her celebration of herself, it hit differently. Maybe because I'd finally stopped caring. I picked up my champagne from a passing waiter's tray and took a slow, deliberate sip. The bubbles felt sharp against my tongue. Everyone was watching me, waiting for me to crumble, to apologize, to beg. Instead, I smiled. "That's okay," I said calmly. "I'm here to celebrate anyway. And to let you know I'm moving abroad. Permanently." My mother's smile froze on her face. "What?" "I'm moving to Amsterdam. I've accepted a position with the International Housing Coalition. Director of European Operations. I leave in 3 weeks." The color drained from her face. Aunt Linda gasped. One of the tennis partners muttered something about how far away Amsterdam was. "You can't be serious," Mom said, her voice losing its affected lightness. "That's halfway across the world." "It's actually about 3,600 miles, I replied. I checked. "But what about? I mean, when would you even visit?" I shrugged. "I'm not sure I will. The position requires extensive travel. I'll be overseeing projects in 12 different countries. I doubt I'll have much time for trips back to Connecticut." Mom's hand trembled slightly as she set down her martini. "This is absurd. You're doing this to spite me." "Actually, I'm doing this because they offered me 3 times my current salary, full relocation assistance, and the chance to make a real difference on an international scale. Your opinion of me never factored into the decision at all." Suddenly, she wasn't smiling. The mask she always wore in public was cracking. "Sarah, don't be rash. We should discuss this privately." "There's nothing to discuss. I've already signed the contract. My apartment is sublet. I've said goodbye to everyone who matters." I glanced around the circle. "I just thought you should know before you read about it on my LinkedIn." Vanessa appeared then, clearly having overheard. "You're really leaving? Just like that?" "Just like that," I confirmed. "This is incredibly selfish," my sister hissed. "What about Mom? What about family obligations?" I nearly laughed. "Family obligations? That's rich coming from you, Vanessa. When's the last time you called me? Or are we still pretending I don't exist because I wouldn't cover for your affair?" Her face went scarlet. Several of Mom's friends exchanged glances. "How dare you?" Vanessa whispered. "I dare because I'm done," I said simply. "I'm done pretending this family is something it's not. I'm done being the scapegoat for everyone's dysfunction. I'm done accepting scraps of affection when I've done nothing but try to earn your approval my entire life. Mom found her voice again. You're being dramatic. You've always been so sensitive. No, I've been reasonable. Too reasonable. I spent my childhood trying to figure out what I did wrong. Why Vanessa was the golden child and I was the problem. Why Dad's attention was always elsewhere. Why your love came with conditions I could never meet. Your father and I gave you everything, Mom snapped, her public persona slipping entirely now. Private school, college, that semester abroad you begged for. You gave me things, I interrupted. Material things. You never gave me the one thing I actually needed. But I've stopped waiting for it. Aunt Linda cleared her throat uncomfortably. Perhaps we should give you all some privacy. No need, I said. I'm leaving anyway. I have dinner plans with friends. Real friends who actually care about me. I started to walk away, then paused. Something compelled me to turn back one more time. For what it's worth, Mom, I hope you have a wonderful birthday. I hope you enjoy your perfect life with your perfect daughter and your perfect country club friends. I hope it's everything you wanted. Sarah, her voice cracked slightly. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. There's a difference. I walked out of that ballroom with my head high. My hands shook as I waited for my Uber, but I didn't cry. I'd shed enough tears over Patricia Hendricks. The following weeks passed in a blur of packing, paperwork, and farewell drinks with the people who'd become my chosen family. My coworkers threw me a party at our favorite dive bar in Williamsburg. My best friend Marcus helped me sort through a decade's worth of accumulated possessions. My landlord, Mrs. Chen, gave me a tearful hug and made me promise to email. My phone rang constantly. Mom called 17 times in the first week. I didn't answer. Vanessa left increasingly hostile voicemails accusing me of breaking up the family. I deleted them without listening past the first few seconds. Dad finally sent a text, "Your mother is very upset. Can we talk?" I responded, "We can, but my decision stands. Hope you're well." What nobody seemed to understand was that this decision had been years in the making. The birthday party was just the final straw, the moment where everything crystallized into perfect clarity. But the foundation had been laid long before that champagne-soaked evening. I'd been 8 years old the first time I understood I was different from Vanessa in ways that mattered to my parents. We were at her middle school graduation, and Mom spent the entire ceremony beaming with pride. Vanessa had maintained to be average, nothing spectacular, but you'd think she'd won a Rhodes Scholarship based on how our parents reacted. Later that same week, I brought home my report card, straight A's for the third year in a row. Mom glanced at it, nodded, and said, "That's nice, sweetie. Can you set the table for dinner?" The pattern continued through high school. Vanessa made varsity cheerleading her sophomore year despite being mediocre at best. Dad took off work early to watch her first game. I made the debate team as a freshman and went on to win the state championship junior year. Neither of them attended a single tournament. Too busy, they said. Work commitments. Vanessa's college applications needed attention. When I got into Princeton with a partial scholarship, Mom's first response was, "Well, that's going to be expensive. Are you sure you wouldn't be just as happy at the state school?" Vanessa had chosen to attend a small liberal arts college in Vermont with a party reputation and a 60% acceptance rate. They paid her full tuition without blinking. College became my refuge. Away from the constant comparisons and the unspoken hierarchy, I could breathe. I threw myself into my studies, volunteered at a homeless shelter in Trenton, and discovered a passion for housing policy that would shape my career. For 4 years, I was just Sarah, not the disappointing daughter, not Vanessa's less impressive sister. Just me. But every holiday, every summer break, I'd return home and slip right back into the old dynamics. Vanessa would regale everyone with stories about her sorority's latest charity event, and Mom would hang on every word. I'd mention the research project I was leading on affordable housing models, and Dad would change the subject to ask about my dating life. When I didn't have a boyfriend to report, he'd exchange meaningful glances with Mom that said everything they were thinking. After graduation, I moved to Brooklyn and started working for a small nonprofit called Community First. The salary was embarrassing, barely enough to cover rent and student loans, but the work mattered. We helped families facing eviction, connected people with resources, and advocated for policy changes at the city level. My boss, Rita, was a fierce Puerto Rican woman in her 50s who'd grown up in the projects and worked her way through law school. She saw something in me that my own family never had. "You're going places, Sarah," she told me during my 6-month review. You've got the passion and the brains. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. I wish I believed her completely. But the voice in my head, the one that sounded suspiciously like my mother, kept whispering that I was wasting my potential. That I should have gone to law school or business school. That helping people was noble but financially foolish. That I'd never amount to anything meaningful this way. Meanwhile, Vanessa married Robert, a hedge fund manager she'd met through family friends. The wedding cost more than I'd earned in 2 years. I was asked to be a bridesmaid but given little input on anything. At the reception, I overheard Aunt Linda telling someone, at least one of Patricia's daughters turned out well. She didn't know I was standing right behind her. The real breaking point had come 6 months before Mom's birthday party. I'd been working on a major project, securing funding for a housing development that would provide apartments for 50 families. We'd spent 2 years navigating bureaucracy, meeting with city officials, courting investors. When the deal finally closed, it made the local news. The New York Times even ran a small piece about it. I called Mom, excited to share the news. Maybe this would finally be something impressive enough to warrant her approval. "That's wonderful, dear," she'd said, her tone distracted. "Listen, I can't talk long. Vanessa is coming over with the kids, and I'm making dinner. But good for you." "Very nice." The conversation lasted 90 seconds. She never asked about the details, never requested a link to the article, never brought it up again. 2 weeks later, Vanessa posted on Facebook about volunteering at her kids' school bake sale. Mom commented within minutes, "So proud of you. You're an amazing mother and such a giving person. We raised you right, heart emoji, heart emoji, heart emoji." Something inside me cracked that day. Not dramatically, more like a windshield with a tiny chip that you know will eventually spider into 1,000 fractures. I stared at that Facebook comment for probably 20 minutes, watching other family friends chime in with their praise. Nobody had commented on the article I'd shared about the housing project. Nobody had even liked it. That's when I started updating my LinkedIn profile. That's when I began responding to recruiters who'd reached out over the years. That's when I started imagining a life far away from people who'd never see me clearly no matter what I accomplished. The position in Amsterdam found me, really. A headhunter named Jennifer called about the International Housing Coalition opportunity. They were looking for someone with grassroots experience, someone who understood both policy and practical implementation, someone willing to take a chance on an unconventional career path. The interview process took 3 months, video calls with various team members, a presentation on my vision for international housing advocacy, reference checks that apparently went extremely well. When they extended the offer, I sat in my tiny Brooklyn apartment and cried. Not sad tears, relieved tears. Someone, somewhere, thought I was exactly what they needed. Not despite my choices, but because of them. I didn't tell my family right away. I wanted to hold it close, protect it from their potential dismissal or criticism. Marcus was the first person I told. We met for drinks at a cocktail bar in the East Village, and I slid the offer letter across the table. He read it, his eyes getting wider. "Sarah. This is incredible. This is, holy shit, look at this salary." "I know. You're going to take it, right? Please tell me you're taking it." "I'm taking it." He whooped loud enough that other patrons turned to look. "My best friend is moving to Amsterdam to become an international badass. I'm so proud of you," I could burst. Those words, "I'm so proud of you," from someone who actually meant them, who saw my accomplishment for what it was, nearly undid me. I realized how starved I'd been for genuine recognition. "I have to tell my family," I said. "I keep putting it off." Marcus knew the whole ugly history. "You don't owe them anything, you know. You could just leave. Send a postcard from the airport." I'd considered it. But something in me needed to say it to their faces. Needed to see their reactions when they realized I was serious about building a life that had nothing to do with their approval. Mom's 60th birthday party seemed like the perfect opportunity. Public enough that she'd have to maintain some composure, significant enough to make the announcement feel weighty. I planned what I'd say, rehearsed it with Marcus, prepared myself for various reactions. What I hadn't prepared for was her saying the quiet part loud. "You're not getting a cent, you've always been a disappointment." In front of everyone. As if my value could be measured in inheritance money. As if she wanted witnesses to my inadequacy. The rage that washed over me in that moment was clarifying. Not hot and reactive, but cold and crystalline. I saw clearly that nothing I ever did would be enough. Not Princeton, not the housing project, not dedicating my career to helping people. She decided who I was decades ago, and no amount of evidence to the contrary would change her mind. So I gave her the news without fanfare or apology. I didn't ask for her blessing or wait for her response. I simply informed her, the way you'd inform someone of a schedule change. The drive home from the party felt surreal. I kept replaying the moment when her face changed, when the mask slipped, and I saw something like panic underneath. She'd gotten so comfortable with me being the nearby disappointment, the daughter she could criticize and control. The thought of me being an ocean away, living a life she couldn't comment on or diminish, clearly terrified her in ways I hadn't anticipated. Good, I thought. Let her feel a fraction of what I felt for 28 years. Dad called the next morning. I was packing books, deciding what to ship and what to donate, when my phone rang. Your mother is beside herself, he said without preamble. Hello to you too, Dad. He sighed. Sarah, this is serious. She barely slept. She's talking about you moving to Amsterdam like you're joining a cult or running away to join the circus. I'm taking a prestigious job with a reputable international organization. How is that remotely comparable to joining a cult? You know what I mean. It's so far away. And you didn't discuss it with us first. Why would I? I'm 28 years old. I don't need permission to make career decisions. Of course not, but we're your parents. We should have some input. I set down the book I'd been holding. Dad, when have you ever had input on my life that was actually supportive? Name one time you encouraged a decision I made. Silence. That's what I thought. You've spent my entire life either ignoring my choices or subtly undermining them. So no, I didn't ask for your input. I don't need it, and frankly, I don't want it. That's unfair. But his voice lacked conviction. Is it? When I chose Princeton, Mom complained about the cost. When I chose nonprofit work, you both made it clear you thought I was wasting my education. When I moved to Brooklyn, you acted like I'd relocated to a war zone. At what point have either of you actually supported something I wanted? We support you, he said weakly. No, you support the version of me you wish existed. The one who went to law school and married someone from the country club and lives in Connecticut and gives you grandchildren to show off. You've never supported the actual me. Another long silence. Then, is this really what you want? Amsterdam? Yes. More than I've wanted anything in a long time. Then I suppose there's nothing more to say. I suppose not. He hung up first. I wasn't surprised. Dad had always been conflict avoidant, happy to let Mom drive the emotional dynamics of our family while he hid behind work and golf. His passivity had enabled her cruelty as surely as if he'd participated directly in it. The last 2 weeks in New York flew by. I had exit interviews at work, goodbye dinners with friends, 1,000 administrative tasks. Rita pulled me aside on my final day. You're going to do amazing things over there, she said. But promise me something? What? Don't lose that fire. Don't let them make you diplomatic and cautious. The world needs people who give a damn, and you give more of a damn than anyone I've ever met. I hugged her tightly. Thank you. For everything. For seeing me. Honey, you're easy to see. Some people just choose to look the other way. Mrs. Chen, my landlord, invited me for tea the day before my flight. Her apartment smelled like jasmine and ginger. She poured from a delicate ceramic pot and studied me with shrewd eyes. This move is good for you, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Your family, they don't appreciate you? I shouldn't have been surprised she'd picked up on it. Mrs. Chen noticed everything. Not particularly, no. She nodded sagely. I left China when I was 25. My parents very angry. Said I was abandoning family, dishonoring them. I came to New York with 2 suitcases and fear in my heart. But also hope. You have hope? Yes, I said. I do. Then you will be fine. Better than fine. Sometimes the family we need is not the family we are born into. You understand? I did. Marcus, Rita, Mrs. Chen, my colleagues at Community First, they were more family to me than people who shared my DNA had ever been. The flight to Amsterdam felt like crossing a threshold. As New York disappeared below me, I felt something loosen in my chest. Years of trying and failing and trying again, years of measuring myself against impossible standards, years of swallowing hurt and disappointment, all of it began to fall away somewhere over the Atlantic. I was going towards something, not just running from something. That distinction mattered. The thing about being the disappointment is that everyone expects you to fail. They expect you to come crawling back, apologizing for your audacity and dreaming bigger than the box they built for you. They expect your life to fall apart without their validation. They never expect you to thrive. Amsterdam was everything I didn't know I needed. The position was challenging but rewarding. My colleagues treated me with respect, valued my input, and appreciated my expertise. Within 2 months, I'd spearheaded a project that secured housing for 300 families across 4 cities. The Dutch director, Willem, pulled me aside after a presentation and told me I was exactly the kind of innovative thinker they'd been searching for. The work itself felt different from what I'd done in New York. We operated on a larger scale, coordinating between governments, NGOs, and private investors across multiple countries. My first major assignment involved traveling to Prague, where a controversial development threatened to displace hundreds of low-income residents. I spent 3 weeks there, meeting with city officials, organizing community forums, and ultimately helping broker a compromise that preserved affordable units while allowing the development to proceed. When I returned to Amsterdam, Willem called it exactly the kind of diplomatic solution we need more of. I rented a narrow canal house with large windows overlooking the water. The place had been built in the 1600s, and the floors sloped at odd angles that took weeks to get used to. My upstairs neighbor, Saskia, was a jazz singer who practiced at strange hours but brought me homemade stroopwafels as an apology. The old woman across the canal, Mevrouw de Vries, waved at me every morning from her window. Within a month, I knew more of my neighbors than I'd known in 3 years of living in Brooklyn. I bought a bicycle and rode it everywhere, even in the rain. There was something liberating about pedaling through the city at dawn, watching it wake up. The early morning light on the canals, the smell of fresh bread from the bakeries, the casual greetings from other cyclists, it all felt like a life I'd seen in movies but never imagined living myself. I learned to speak Dutch badly but enthusiastically. My colleagues found my attempts at pronunciation hilarious, but they appreciated the effort. I practiced with a woman who ran the cheese shop near my house, stumbling through conversations about Gouda varieties while she gently corrected my grammar. Language learning humbled me in ways I hadn't expected, reminding me that being a beginner at something didn't diminish my worth. I made friends with my neighbors, who invited me to dinners and gallery openings and lazy Sunday brunches. Saskia introduced me to her circle of artists and musicians. They argued about philosophy and politics late into the night, switching between Dutch and English so I could follow along. Nobody asked me about my salary or what my parents did for a living. They cared about ideas, about art, about making the world slightly less terrible. I felt seen in ways I'd forgotten were possible. I dated a little, nothing serious, but it was nice to have coffee with people who saw me as interesting rather than insufficient. A graphic designer named Lars took me to an experimental theater performance that made no sense but was visually stunning. An environmental lawyer named Sophie and I had 3 dates before mutually agreeing we were better as friends. The rejection didn't sting the way it might have back home. Here, I wasn't auditioning for the role of acceptable daughter in every interaction. 6 months after I left, Aunt Linda found me on Facebook. Her message was brief: "Your mother fell and broke her hip. She's been asking for you. She's at Greenwich Hospital." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me, the little girl who'd spent her whole life seeking her mother's approval, wanted to book the next flight home. The rest of me remembered standing in that ballroom, remembered every cutting remark, every comparison to Vanessa, every way I'd been made to feel small. I sent flowers instead. Expensive ones. The card read, "Wishing you a speedy recovery. Sarah." Mom called from the hospital. This time, I answered. "You sent flowers," she said. Her voice sounded frail, older. "I did. But you're not coming home." "No, I'm not." Silence stretched between us. I could hear hospital sounds in the background, beeping monitors, distant conversations, a medication cart rolling past. "I don't understand you," she finally said. "I'm your mother. I'm in the hospital." "I know. I'm sorry you're hurt. I genuinely hope you recover fully. But you're not coming." "Mom, for the first time in my life, I'm happy. Actually, genuinely happy. I have work that fulfills me. I have friends who celebrate my successes instead of diminishing them. I have a life that I built on my own terms. Coming back would compromise that peace." "So you're just going to abandon me?" I closed my eyes. "You told me I was a disappointment at your birthday party. In front of all your friends. You said I wasn't getting a cent of your money, as if that's what mattered to me. You've spent my entire life making it clear I don't measure up. And now you want me to drop everything because you need me?" "I'm your mother," she repeated, as if that explained everything. "You are. But being a mother is more than biology. It's showing up. It's supporting your children's dreams even when they don't match yours. It's loving them unconditionally, not just when they make you look good. Her breath hitched. For a moment, I thought she might apologize, might finally see what she'd done. But then, you're being cruel. No, I'm being honest. There's a difference. Vanessa is there. She can help you. She's always been the daughter you wanted anyway. Vanessa is. Mom trailed off. She's going through something. She and Robert are separating. I wasn't surprised. I'm sorry to hear that. She could use her sister right now. Then she should call me herself. Though I suspect she won't. Vanessa doesn't know how to need people without resenting them for it. Wonder where she learned that? You've become very hard, Sarah. I've become very honest. Again, there's a difference. I paused. I have to go. I have a meeting in 20 minutes. Take care of yourself, Mom. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but I felt lighter somehow. Closure doesn't always look like forgiveness. Sometimes it looks like boundaries. Vanessa did eventually call, 3 weeks later. It was 2 a.m. my time. I was half asleep when I answered. Mom's home from rehab, she said without preamble. She needs round-the-clock care for another month. I can't do it alone. I have the kids, and Robert is being a nightmare about custody. I sat up, turned on the light. What do you need from me, Vanessa? I need you to come home. Or send money for a nurse. Or something. Hire a home health aide. Mom has excellent insurance and plenty of savings. She won't let strangers in the house. Then she'll have to adjust her expectations. My voice was gentler than I expected. Look, I'm sorry about Robert. Truly. But I can't be your solution to this. I can't be Mom's solution either. We're family. Her voice broke. That's supposed to mean something. It does mean something. It means I want you both to be okay. It means I hope you heal from whatever you're going through. But it doesn't mean I light myself on fire to keep you warm anymore. I don't understand how you can be so cold. I'm not cold. I'm surviving. Do you have any idea what it was like growing up as the lesser daughter? Every achievement I had was met with "that's nice, dear," while your mediocre accomplishments got celebrated like you'd won a Nobel Prize. Every mistake I made was proof of my inadequacy, while your failures were just temporary setbacks. I spent 28 years trying to be enough for people who'd already decided I wasn't. Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. I didn't. I mean, I knew Mom was harder on you, but I didn't think. You didn't think because it benefited you not to think about it. It's easier to accept being the favorite than to question why there has to be a favorite at all. What do you want me to say? Nothing. I don't need you to say anything. I just need you to understand I'm not coming back to fix things. Figure it out with Mom. Set boundaries. Hire help. Do whatever you need to do. But leave me out of it. I hung up before she could argue further. The months rolled into a year. I got promoted. My project expanded into 6 more countries. I fell in love with a Belgian architect named Thomas who made me laugh, and never once made me feel like I had to earn his affection. We moved in together into a larger apartment near Fondle Park. My phone stopped ringing as frequently. Mom sent a birthday card, late, but it arrived. The message inside was brief: "Happy birthday, Sarah. Hope you're well." No signature, just her initials. I tucked it into a drawer and didn't overthink it. Aunt Linda kept me updated without being asked. Mom was recovering well. She'd hired a wonderful home health aide named Carmen who'd stayed on as a companion. Vanessa's divorce was finalized. She'd started therapy. The kids were adjusting. Life, apparently, went on without me. Just as mine had gone on without them. I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt sometimes. There were moments, getting promoted, falling in love, having a paper published in an international journal, when I wished I had a mother who'd be proud. But I'd learned to sit with that grief without letting it consume me. I'd learned the difference between longing for what should have been and accepting what was. 2 years after leaving, I was in Copenhagen for a conference when I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "From Patricia Hendricks." My finger hovered over the delete button. Then curiosity won. "Dear Sarah, Carmen helped me set up this email. I'm not very good with computers, as you know. I wanted to write to you because my therapist suggested it might be helpful. Yes, I'm in therapy." Vanessa insisted after she started going, and I suppose she was right to insist. "I've been doing something called family of origin work. It's uncomfortable. We've been discussing my own mother and the way I was raised. My therapist asked me to think about the messages I received as a child and how they might have affected the mother I became. This is not an excuse. But perhaps it's an explanation. My mother was cold and exacting. Nothing I did was ever quite right. I swore I wouldn't be like her, and then I spent your childhood doing exactly what she did to me. Worse, I did it while telling myself I was preparing you for a harsh world, toughening you up, refusing to coddle you the way modern parents do. The truth is I was terrified. You were always so sensitive, so earnest, so determined to save everyone. I worried the world would eat you alive. I thought if I could just make you harder, tougher, more like Vanessa, you'd be safe. Instead, I broke something between us that I'm not sure can be repaired. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking you to come home or to resume a relationship you clearly don't want. I'm just asking you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. I see how I made you feel. And I'm sorry. You were never the disappointment, Sarah. I was? If you want to respond, you can. If you don't, I'll understand. Mom. I read the email 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and went for a walk along the harbor. The water was gray and choppy, matching my mood. Thomas found me there an hour later. Bad news? He asked, wrapping his coat around my shoulders. No. Just unexpected news. I told him about the email. He listened without interrupting, the way he always did. What will you do? He finally asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to ignore it. Part of me wants to believe she means it. Part of me doesn't trust any of it. All of those feelings can be true at once. I leaned into him. How did you get so wise? Therapy, he said, grinning. And a very patient mother who taught me that people are complicated. I didn't respond to the email immediately. I sat with it for weeks, letting it percolate. I talked about it in my own therapy sessions, examining my feelings from every angle. Eventually, I wrote back. Mom, thank you for your email. I appreciate your honesty and your apology. I can't tell you it fixes everything, because it doesn't. There's a lot of hurt that accumulated over a lot of years, and an email, however sincere, can't erase that. But I appreciate you trying to understand. I appreciate you doing the work to see things differently. That takes courage. I'm not ready for phone calls or visits. Maybe someday I will be. Right now, I need to protect the peace I've built. But I'm open to occasional emails like this one. Small steps. I hope you're doing well. I hope therapy continues to help you. I hope you and Carmen are getting along. I'm happy here. Genuinely, deeply happy. I hope knowing that brings you some peace too. Sarah. We emailed sporadically after that. Never about anything deep. She'd tell me about her garden, I'd mention a project I was working on. She sent photos of the house after some renovations. I sent pictures of Amsterdam in the spring. The messages were pleasant, surface level, safe. 3 years after I left, Aunt Linda passed away suddenly. Heart attack, quick and unexpected. I flew home for the funeral. It was the first time I'd been back to Connecticut since that birthday party. Mom looked older, smaller somehow. Her hair had gone completely white, though she still wore it in the same style. She was leaning on a cane when I approached her after the service. Sarah, she said softly. You came. Aunt Linda was good to me. We stood in awkward silence for a moment. Vanessa hovered nearby, watching us warily. You look well, Mom finally said. Happy? I am. I'm glad. She seemed to mean it. Will you stay long? Just through tomorrow. I have to get back. She nodded, accepting. Would you consider coming to the house? Just for coffee. No expectations. I hesitated, then agreed. The house looked the same but felt different. Carmen greeted me warmly, mentioning she'd heard so much about me. We sat in the sunroom, Mom's favorite spot, drinking coffee from the good china. Tell me about Amsterdam, Mom said. Really tell me. Not just the surface things you put in emails. So I did. I told her about my work, about the families we'd helped, about the systemic changes we were implementing. I told her about Thomas, about our apartment, about learning to cook Indonesian food from our upstairs neighbor. I told her about feeling at home in a place that was nothing like the home I'd grown up in. She listened without interrupting, without comparing, without diminishing. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You did what I never could, she finally said. You broke the cycle. You refused to accept a life that made you miserable. You chose yourself. She paused. I'm proud of you, Sarah. I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now. I'm proud of you. The words I'd waited my entire childhood to hear. They should have felt triumphant. Instead, they just felt sad. Sad for all the years we'd wasted, sad for the relationship we'd never have, sad for the little girl I'd been who'd needed to hear those words so desperately. Thank you, I said simply. We finished our coffee. I said goodbye. I promised to keep emailing. I flew back to Amsterdam the next day. Thomas picked me up from Schiphol. How was it? Bittersweet, I said. But okay. It was okay. That's the thing about healing. It doesn't look like dramatic reconciliations or sweeping forgiveness. Sometimes it just looks like okay. Sometimes okay is enough. I still live in Amsterdam. My career continues to flourish. Thomas and I got married last spring in a small ceremony by the canals. Mom sent flowers, beautiful ones. The card read, "Wishing you every happiness." I mean that. Love, Mom. We email once a month now, sometimes more. The relationship we have isn't the one I wanted as a child, but it's the one we're capable of as adults. There's peace in that acceptance. I learned something important in those years after I left. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You don't have to accept less than you deserve because someone convinced you that's all you're worth. You don't have to stay in relationships, even family ones, that diminish you. The best revenge isn't vindictiveness. It isn't proving them wrong or making them sorry. The best revenge is building a life so full, so rich, so authentically yours that their opinion of you becomes irrelevant. I'm not a disappointment. I never was. I'm exactly who I was meant to be, someone who chose herself when choosing herself felt impossible. Someone who walked away when walking away felt like betrayal. Someone who refused to shrink to fit into spaces that were never designed for her flourishing. And across an ocean, in a city full of canals and bicycles and tulips that bloom every spring, I'm finally, genuinely, impossibly happy.